Well, good morning, Homestead homies. Today we're going to plant some Purple Bok Choy and we're going to grow it in containers. We'll be right back after the break. We're going to talk all about it. See you in a minute. Well, welcome back. Wanted to talk to you about Purple Bok Choy today. You know, I've always had trouble with slugs with my bok choy. I mean, they are slug magnets. But years ago, I started growing them in containers and I got them up on my grow tables up off the ground, and my slug problem basically went away. And I'm not saying that's going to happen for everybody, or maybe it was just my perfect conditions or something, but I found that over the years that whenever I raise my bok choy up off the ground on grow tables in containers, I don't have a slug problem. So I'm going to stick with that procedure because it's been successful for me. But today we're going to start our bok choy from seeds, and these bok choy get a real beautiful purple leaf, and it's the best to plant this in the fall. So if you're looking for something to plant this fall in your garden, you might want to consider this bok choy. It's very tasty. Nancy makes great soups with it and all kinds of stuff with it. It's good. I like it. Good in salads too. But you want to plant this when it's about anywhere from 50 to 80 degrees so it won't bolt. It bolts very easy, but it seems that in the fall when you plant it and the temperatures are falling as fall comes on and the temperatures are decreasing, it doesn't seem to bolt quite as bad. Hardly any. When I plant it in the spring and the temperatures are rising as the plant's maturing, it seems to bolt like that. So I stick to putting these in the fall. You want to put them in full sun. You want to keep your soil moist in your container, and by checking that, you just stick your finger down into the container and make sure it feels damp and moist. If it's dry and loose in there, you need to water your plants. So that's how I'm going to maintain these. I'm going to start them in these starter cups. I like the nice deep 2-inch cups because I can get a good root system on it before I transplant it into the 3-gallon containers. And we'll get to that when it's time to transplant them. So we'll get into some more detail on growing these in the containers, but for now I want to get these in the seed trays and get them started in the seed rack so we can get ready to transplant these into containers. So let's get started on these seeds. Here's how I start all of my seeds. I use a 10-20 starting tray, and I like to use the ones with the drain holes because I start my seeds outdoors, so I don't have a problem with the drainage of the water seeping through and getting anything wet on the inside of my house or the inside of an indoor container, seed starting container, because I do all my seed starting outside. So I like to have the drain holes in mind because I want to keep my cuts. I want the water to fall completely through my cups and let me add water as needed instead of them standing in water for too long of a period of time, which rots my seeds. Okay, so that's why I use the 10-20 drain tray. Now I use my cups, my seed starting cups. I like to use the ones that have at least a 2 to 3 inch deep cell, because I want to get a good root system through here before I try to pull that little seedling out of there. Next thing I do is I add my seed starting mix, and I make my own seed starting mix. So if you want to learn how to make this stuff at home, you can. We have a video on our channel that explains how to do that and demonstrates it pretty clear. Or you can, if you only have 1 or 2 trays to do, then just simply go buy some seed starting mix at your local nursery. For me, I have many seed trays that I need to start, so it's more economical for me to make my own seed starting mix. Okay, so next thing I do is I use the mix. And I fill up my tray, my seed starting cells. Once I have it good and leveled off like this, then I come back through here and I mash in all of these seed cells. Mash them in good and tight. Use your fingers, push them down in there, because this thing is just full of air. And if you have air inside these cells when you're trying to start your seeds, they're not going to germinate. You know, you're just wasting your money and your time, and very disappointing. So you want to keep these things good and tight when you get ready to start. So push them down good. Once I have them down, packed in there pretty tight, the next thing I do is I pre-moisten. Some people pre-moisten their soil before they put it in, but I've always found it easier to do it like this. So you can do it either way you want, it's up to you. So now that I got it tight, I pre-moisten each cell by flooding it a little bit. Okay. Let that soak down just for a few seconds. You see it just gobbles up that moisture, it's so dry. And once I got it where I don't see the water standing anymore, then I tamp down the tray. Now it's really good and tight, and it's moist. I'm going to use some spinach seeds here for this demonstration, simply because the seeds are nice and big and you can see them on the camera. Here's the seeds. Now what I like to do is I like to put 2 to 3 seeds in each cell. I'll let those seeds germinate, and as the seedlings get up mature, a little bit bigger, where they're an inch or so tall, I'll come in with a pair of scissors and snip off, you know, the weakest looking seedlings and keep the best one. So I thin it down to where I have 1 seedling for each tray. So let's start out by putting a couple seeds in each one of these cells. And I try to make sure that I get them kind of close to the middle of the cell, because if you don't, they run out to the end, you know, to the edge of the cup, and I just don't like them to grow down the edge of the cup. Okay, after I get the seeds in the cups, and I come back and I add in some more soil and level that back off again to where you got right at about 1/4 inch of soil on top of those seeds. And right now this looks like I got more than 1/4 inch, but keep in mind it's full of air. So once I get it in there, again I mash it down a little bit. I hit it with a little bit of water. You'll see it sink down some more. So I'm getting to that 1/4 inch, that magic 1/4 inch mark I'm looking for of soil over the top of the seed. You don't have to add very much water that time. And again, I tamp it down. And the last thing I like to do is I always put a tag in my seed trays. I like to write on what that seed is, what that tray is, and what date that I planted it. Okay, then I stick it right into the corner here in one of the cells, and that tray's ready to go to the seed starting rack and germinate. So hopefully in about 10 days, we'll have some spinach. There we go. They're off and running. Okay, we got our Purple Bok Choy in the seed starting trays and in the seed starting rack. So stick with us. We'll be back in the days ahead, and we'll watch the progression of these all the way out to harvest. So don't go away and stay tuned. We'll see you soon. All right, our Purple Bok Choy has germinated, broke ground, and it's got plenty of little brand new seedlings. And remember how we put, you know, some extra seeds in each cell? It's time to come back and thin them out. And what I want to do is thin it out until I have 1 seedling per cell. So instead of pulling them out by the roots and possibly damaging the roots to the plant adjacent to it, I just take the weakest looking one and I just simply snip it right off. see, get it down to one plant. Okay. We'll let these keep growing. We'll be back here shortly until we get them ready to harden off and get them planted into some containers. We'll be back soon. Well, our Purple Bok Choy has been in the seed starting rack for 2 weeks today, so let's take a look at the progress and see where we're at. Well, looks like we've had a pretty good germination rate. I've got some little seedlings here that are about 1.5, 2 inches tall. Got plenty of true leaves on them. They've got some ways to go, so we'll let these stay out here in the rack and get about another week's growth on them, and then we'll start looking at hardening them off and getting them ready for you know, the containers. So let's let these have a little bit more time to develop, and we'll be back in about a week. See you then. Well, good morning. Purple Bok Choy is doing pretty good. I've hardened it off this week, about the last 4 days. It's kind of small, but I think it'll be okay. I'll get ahead and get it put into some containers and get some blood meal in there with it, and that'll give it a good boost of nitrogen to get it going. But anyway, the plants are looking pretty good. They're kind of small, a little on the puny side, but that's okay. We're gonna fix that too. So let's get these planted in the 3-gallon containers and get them out on the grow table and let them start gobbling up some of that sunshine. So let's get to it. Okay. First thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna fill my 3-gallon containers up with some container mix. This is my own container mix that I mix myself. We have a video on our channel on how to make your own container mix at home, so go check out that video because it's pretty easy to do, and I think it'll help you in the long run if you just learn how to make your own mix. You still have to buy some ingredients, but you can stretch them a lot further than just going and buying one bag of container mix every time you want to fill up some pots. You know, if you have multiple pots, a lot of pots at a time, it would behoove you to go ahead and make it up yourself like this instead of trying to do so many bags of it. But anyway, let's get this in the ground. Get this in the containers. And what I like to do is fill these containers up about 3 inches from the rim. That allows me to put some blood meal in that container, and I can flood that container with water, and that'll wash that blood meal down in there a little bit for me, and it pre-moistens all my soil. So let's get this filled up first, and then we'll go to the next step. Next thing I do is I put in a good solid handful of this blood meal in each one of these pots, and then I'll water that in. I like to use this blood meal because it gives a high source of organic nitrogen to boost that foliage growth. Foliage growth is what we're looking for over this bok choy. So now I flood the pot. I get it to where it stands in water about an inch or two, and then I'll let that soak down for about 15 minutes, and it'll be ready to go to the next step. So let me go ahead and get these pots soaking, and we'll be right back. Okay, our pots have finished soaking. Next step is I add some more soil on here, and I'll bring it up to right about an inch below the rim of this container. Let me grab some soil, just like that. Then I'll take my hand and I push my fingers down in there, and I'll dig me out a hole about from the center of my palm to the tip of my finger, so it's about 4 inches deep. Then I'll take the plant and remove it from the seed starting cells, and I add another little handful of bone meal. I'm not bone meal, but blood meal. Stir that in there, and I push it in there, collapse the sides around it. Pack it in pretty good, and we'll get that over to the grow table. Let me do one more. Add some soil, dig out the little hole with my hand. I add in about that much bone meal, which is maybe 2 tablespoons. Remove the plant from the seed starting cell. Put it right in the hole. What I do is I collapse the sides around it. Then I push it down. Get the sides first, and then push it down. He's kind of small right now, but give him a week. Okay, let's get them all put into the pots and get them over to the grow table. Okay, there's our Purple Bok Choy on the grow table, ready to grow. So we got it watered in for the final time, and we'll be taking care of this over the weeks ahead. And I hope you stick with us on this little journey with this Purple Bok Choy as we take it all the way to harvest. So we'll be back in a week or two and take a look at the progress of this little plant and see how she's progressing. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Okay, our Purple Bok Choy's been out here for about 2 weeks now. It's trying to get going. It's really had a struggle. They were really tough to get started. The green Bok Choy is much easier to grow than this hybrid purple. But anyway, it's an interesting plant, and we look forward to harvesting it and making some cool looking Napa cabbage, bok choy kimchi and bok choy soup out of it. So we'll be back here soon and take another look at it. We're hoping that it'll get to looking a lot better than this in the days ahead. So we'll be back soon. Well, our Purple Bok Choy has come on, and it's looking beautiful. It's actually big enough now to where we can harvest some of this, and I just wanted to show you how beautiful these leaves are. They got a really deep purple color to them. They're really beautiful. They don't seem to be getting as big as the green Bok Choy, the ones that I'm used to seeing in the supermarkets and places like that, but they're still pretty good. They're getting pretty big. I think they'll get a little bit bigger in the days ahead, but I want to go ahead and harvest a couple of these while it's nice and young and tender like this. So let me pull up a couple of these buckets, and we'll go over to the harvester and clean them up a little bit and give them over to Miss Nancy and let her do her thing with them. So let's grab a couple of these. Ain't those pretty? And we'll take them over to the processing table and we'll dress them up just a little bit more for her. And what I like to do with these after I get them over here is any of these little leaves on the bottom that don't look just right, I take those off, and I'm gonna give those to the chickens, and they will thank me for them. And I'll give her this little piece here. There we go. Two fine beauties. Well, I got my two little purple bok choys all cleaned up for her. I'm gonna take them in, and looks like we'll have some of that for supper. So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little journey on the purple bok choy. Might be something you want to put in your fall garden this year, or maybe even your spring garden. But this is really an interesting plant, and I really like the color. So till me and Nancy see you next time, I hope this video brought some peace to your heart and joy to your day. So we'll see you on the next video. Until then, by His hands we are fed. Give us, Lord, our daily bread. Amen.
Have a blessed day.